All right, good evening, everybody. We'll call the March 3rd, 2025 Public Works and Sustainability Committee to order. We have a tidy agenda for you this evening. First item of business, approval of the minutes for November 4th, 2024. Can I hear a second? I'll make a motion to approve.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'll say for the record, Councilman Bullock, who's also on the committee, will be here shortly. Second item of business, a communication from Planning Director Byington regarding acceptance of the 2025 NOPEC Energized Community Grant Program Award. This is something we saw, got a little bit of a rundown on last time, but Director Byington is going to give us a little more in-depth information this evening. So without ado, turn it over to you, Director Byington.
Thank you, Councilman Evans. As you said, February 3rd, Council considered the acceptance of the 2025 NOPEC funds, and during that meeting it was asked that we provided a brief presentation on eligible uses for the funds, what the funds have been used for in the past. So that's what I'll be giving you today, and I have Jill Bartolotta, our Climate Action and Sustainability Coordinator, here to answer specific questions. She's really the expert on use of these funds. So these funds are given to NOPEC communities annually. And so our annual allocation this year for 2025 is a little over $157,000. Can be used for government, residential, and commercial properties. And the purpose of it is to be used on energy-based projects. Some examples of eligible projects include lease or purchase of plug-in electric vehicles, traffic signal upgrades, energy-efficient windows, solar-powered LED stop signs, energy-efficient air conditioner installs, electrical upgrades, LED lighting upgrades, service garage insulation, energy-efficient metal roofs, installation of radius ceiling fans, energy-efficient kitchen appliances, door replacement, and generators. 2024 funded projects include purchase of 2 e-bikes for the police department, purchase and installation of LED lights at Lakewood Park, purchase of an electric paint sprayer, and that dollar amount is the difference between gas versus electric, so we paid the difference with NOPEC funds, LED lights for the Winterhurst scoreboard, and EV chargers at the Refuse and Recycling Center. 2025 projects that the funds have been appropriated for. You'll see the first 5 were approved as part of the capital plan during the budget process. So the first is Lake Ave and Clifton Bridge LED lights, EV charging stations, City Center electrical upgrades, electric Kubota for the refuse and recycling building, electric Jaws of Life for the fire department, and then repainting of the Detroit bike sharrows. So I figured that you would want to have more of a discussion at this meeting, so that was very brief. I did forward, you should have received the policy information regarding NOPEC funds. I'd sent it to the council clerk, and I believe it was forwarded on to you. So you could ask specific questions on that, and we do have, if it comes up, budget numbers. If you need them, we have those available.
Great, thank you, Director Byington. Before I turn it over, just colleagues, just one quick question since I've not been involved in this in the past. Can you talk a little bit about which projects are, chosen to be, for these dollars to be used for? I mean, I know they're in the capital plan, but how do they get to, how was it decided that these were the things that we're going to allocate these dollars to?
So I can just speak to this year's process, and I'm not sure if the mayor will want to jump in at some point, but basically, these projects are helping to offset some of the capital expenditures for budgetary reasons. So they're all eligible projects, and they were already part of the capital plan and planned for this year. So that's how we came to the conclusion to use those funds on those projects.
Yeah, and if I could add, yeah, that's been true for the last few years, along with other projects that have been brought up by city council members throughout the years. I know Councilman Bullock has really advocated for enhancing our electric fleet, which would include some of our smaller fleet vehicles like the Kubota, or adding electric items such as the Jaws of Life for the fire department. So reducing capital expenditure, but also listening to some of what council would like to use these dollars for throughout the years. And this is annual, so every year we'll need to approve, or pardon me, accept these dollars from NOPAC. So we've been doing that for probably at least 20 years now.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that. I'll turn it over to my colleagues. Councilman Steiner, as you're the other member of the committee here today, I'll let you tee it off if you have any questions.
I don't. I did read through what was sent over to the clerk. Thank you for that. I think it's pretty clear cut what the use is, what's allowable, what's not allowable. So I just do want to be clear that it does say something about we would need to put forth legislation and have that uploaded as part of the grant agreement. Is that accurate, or is it done differently?
That is accurate, and it has already been uploaded.
Okay.
And I'll turn it over to, well, as Councilman Bullock just arrived, maybe do any of my other colleagues have any questions while he gets a second to get up to speed? Councilman Baker.
Thank you. And if the clerk could send that, I think maybe just the committee members got it. But if you could send it to I'd also like to look at it just out of curiosity. If you go back a slide, understanding, in the capital plan, what's the asterisk? I usually look for the bottom clarifier there.
Thank you. That project is not part of the capital plan.
So was it approved in the budget, or?
I believe, and I'm not sure if Director Gordon comes at a later point, I believe that is probably part of their operating funds for repainting of streets.
Okay. Thank you. So essentially we are getting the paint and we are painting it, or?
Paint and labor,
So we're going to
So
get
we
a
can-
contractor to do it?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Or can we-
Any other questions for Director Byington? Councilman Bullock.
Hi, thanks, Mr. Chair. Thank you, administration. Thanks for being here. I guess my question would be, evaluating the use of the funds, are we getting a good result and multiple on the value there? They're intended for clean and efficient. I have a feeling that the answer is for sure yes on the LED side of the lights. But then the other question would be, are there opportunities to be creative with this? And so an example would be more of the public-facing work. I know we've done quite a lot of electric vehicle charging equipment. That's great. City of Athens, I mentioned once or twice, has done an electric lawnmower, a traditional lawnmower buyback replaced with electric as a way to engage the public, do some education, reward people who want to make that conversion that has a outsized impact on air quality in the neighborhood. Because if you get an old, single cycle, whatever the term is, one of these old machines that somebody's been using for a long time, it cranks out a ton of pollution right in the neighborhood where we're all breathing it. That's just one example. So I guess I'd like to hear any thoughts that we may have under development about getting creative with the use of these funds. And if we don't have some, can we enter a dialogue this year, in the next few months, about using them going forward with some other ideas? And I'd quite frankly, I'd love to see the Sharrows get paid for out of Public Works. I don't think we need to. $45,000 is affordable. That's a tiny amount in a Public Works budget. That's a significant amount of NOPEC funds. I love the fact that we're going to retouch Sharrows, of course, but we can probably find ways to get that done somewhere else.
Thank you, Councilman Bullock. I'm not sure if you were here when we talked about how we came to the conclusion, or how administration and the mayor decided how to use these funds. And basically, it's helping to offset the capital expenditures at this point, and they were projects that council had brought up in the past, and that's how we came to these projects for 2025. We have talked internally about how we could be a little more creative. However, some of the programs, the lawnmower one for one that you talk about, might be employee time, extensive. So it's something that we'd have to look at deeper, and we would need a much longer runway to understand if it's something that we have capacity to actually implement. Like I said, at this point, these are how we came to the conclusion to spend the money this way in 2025 to help offset the capital expenditures.
Understand, thank you. So maybe the next time the NOPEC dollars come through, we won't have legislation that says accept and expend funds. I mean, I guess my suggestion to the council leadership is that the legislation would not just delegate it to the administration, but that city council would retain control, or we would retain a portion of those funds to take some initiative. I mean, we've got, City of Lakewood's finances are in pretty good shape. I know we want to offset the capital budget, but what I have observed over the years is that we're more willing to be more creative with this category of funds because it's a grant from the outside as opposed to the traditional funding that comes from local tax collection. So I guess I'd rather not see us only thinking of this as a accessory to our traditional budgeting, but rather it should be viewed as a way to make forward progress on a lot of things that are called for in our climate action plan, for example. So that's it. I mean, I certainly support the purposes that you've got listed here. It's more, can we get even stronger in how we're planning and thinking of our options? That's the perspective I'm coming from. Thanks.
Councilmember Keppel.
Thank you. So I just, on that topic, so, and I'm not sure actually who to ask about this, so whoever in the administration can confirm my understanding is correct, that these funds are based on the number of NOPEC customers in the city of Lakewood, correct? Okay, I'm seeing a lot of nods, so okay. And so going in, so these were, for 2025, when we went through the budget process, it's a big budget document, so there's a lot to take in, but all the things that say capital plan were listed there. We were expecting to get this amount of money because we can anticipate the number of NOPEC customers, give or take. Is that an accurate thing to say? Okay. So going into 2026, we would also be able to guesstimate about how much we would get based on the number of customers we expect to get. So I would suggest for council, we're heading into our retreat where we'll be looking at our priorities again, that this would be a good time to be thinking about going into the 2026 budget process. If there are related, because these NOPEC dollars are specifically along climate-related projects, is that, and energy efficiency, okay. I think those are connected, but not exactly the same thing. So in terms of energy efficiency, I know a lot of us have talked about our Soul Smart program and some other things, so just something to be thinking about, because the time to begin those conversations with the administration would be now rather than in November of 2026. So we can be thinking about that. And so to Councilman Bullock, to your point, I think that is a conversation, but we'd want to begin it sooner rather than when we get the notice of the NOPEC funds. It's already kind of been anticipated what is happening because the budget's already been put together. So, sorry, go ahead.
Councilwoman Steiner.
Yeah. So I guess for my own purposes and perhaps others, it might be helpful. What is the timeline for this funding that comes? Like, when do we typically get the notification that it's available? When do we start applying? So as we're thinking about 2026, how would that feed into 2026?
So we don't need to apply for the funding. It just automatically comes, but you do have to accept it. And so that's what just happened earlier in this month. So in about the end of January, you'll receive notification from NOPEC that you've been awarded X amount of dollars based on how many people are part of NOPEC in the community. And then you need to pass the resolution to accept that funding. There's a few more documents that need to be uploaded to the portal, and then that money is available to you. So for us this year, it took us about 3 to 4 weeks for that process. And then the money will expire in 2 years on the 30th of November.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Mayor.
Thank you. I just, I know we've got some new council members, so just for your information, the majority of these projects up there have been brought up by various council members. I know Councilman Bullock has brought up the city center, also wanting to enhance our fleet vehicles and utility vehicles, if you will, to Jaws of Life. So just so there's an understanding, these majority of these have been discussed over time with council members, and we try to work them into the budget as best we can.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councilman Baker.
Yeah, thank you. To Council President's point, I certainly think that all of us up here in the administration would be willing to entertain a creative, different way to have maybe some portion of these funds be used for more community engagement type things, like Councilman Bullock suggests. Although understanding the kind of buyback programs are staff intensive, so there may be other things. But I'd be interested to see, I mean, NOPEC serves a lot of communities, and then there's other kind of similar entities to NOPEC across the state. So I'd be interested in what other communities are doing, and maybe if something we can kind of model. But, these projects are hard to argue against. Obviously, we all supported them in the capital plan, and they're all really good projects. So, but that doesn't mean we can't find better ways to do it. Thanks.
Any other thoughts?
Councilman Evans, just as a thought, it looks like there's a lot of money. Some of that is carryover. The average is about 120 to 150,000 a year. So some of this was carryover from prior years. Just when council's considering things, don't think we have, all that much money in a year.
Great, thanks for that qualification.
Mr. Chair.
Councilman Bullock.
Thanks. One other question. First of all, Mayor, I do want to acknowledge what you just said. I mean, I in particular have been advocating for electric vehicles, and you've got 2 here, so thank you for that responsiveness. Second, the charging stations, we've done a really nice job. I think there's 9. Is this maybe for a 10th location, public facing? So, yeah, and that's maybe 8 of them are double-headed, 1 single-headed, that kind of thing. But the other thing is we've done for quite some time the LED streetlight conversion. I don't remember off the top of my head how many of our streets, how much, linear feet of road we've covered. It'd be good to get some context to understand what are our plans, how far along we are, that kind of thing. And then, same goes for the EV charging. I think that's to be commended. The city's worked consistently probably for 10 years on both of those. And so are we almost done? Are we a third done? I don't know. But just understanding the thinking there would be great. And I don't have any preconceived notions here. Just would be great to put that in context. Thanks.
Final thoughts from administration or anybody else on council? All right, great. I certainly agree that it would be a great time to discuss this in the council retreat. So hopefully we can do that there. Seeing no other business, I will adjourn this meeting of the committee. Thank you.
right, we will call the March 3rd meeting of City Council to order. If you're able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll now pause for a moment of silence. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Baker,
Here.
Bullock,
Here.
Evans,
Here.
Keppel,
Here.
Marks. Steiner,
Here.
Strebig.
Here. And then, without objection, I'm going to ask, to move item 3 to the next item on the docket.
No objection.
Item 3, Resolution 2025-07. A resolution to recognize the life and legacy of Lakewood resident, longtime volunteer, activist, and all-around upstanding citizen Mary Warren on the occasion of her 95th birthday to be celebrated among friends and family on March 4th, 2025.
I'll first move to adopt.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded, and then I'd like to ask the clerk to read the resolution.
A resolution to recognize the life and legacy of Lakewood resident, lifelong volunteer, activist, and all-around upstanding citizen Mary Warren on the occasion of her 95th birthday to be celebrated among friends and family on March 4th, 2025. Whereas Mary Warren was born March 4th, 1930 in St. Paul, Minnesota, and whereas after a chance encounter in Yellowstone National Park with born and raised Lakewoodite Joe Warren turned into love and then marriage, Mary and Joe Warren settled down to start a family on Blossom Park Avenue in 1952. And whereas before leaving Minnesota, Miss Warren earned a bachelor's degree in social work from University of Minnesota, which afforded her the opportunity to enjoy a 20-year career as a counselor, and later, after earning a master's degree at the age of 63, a licensed professional clinical counselor helping children and families. And whereas while growing a family, Miss Warren immersed herself in Lakewood civic and religious life, taking on volunteer roles with the PTA, St. Malachi Catholic Church, and the Lakewood chapter of the League of Women Voters of Greater Cleveland, where she served as one of the chapter's most engaged, active, and longstanding members for over 60 years, and served as its president for multiple terms during that time. And whereas in appreciation of her many civic pursuits and her work over the years to register thousands of voters, Ms. Warren was recognized by the League of Women Voters in 2021 with an annual scholarship named in her honor. The scholarship is awarded to select Lakewood High School seniors who follow in her footsteps and demonstrate a high level of community engagement. And whereas Ms. Warren's active participation in Lakewood civic and governmental affairs over many decades provides another example of the long tradition of confident and vocal female leaders influencing public policy in Lakewood and ought to be upheld for other citizens to model. And whereas Ms. Warren's notable commitment to her family, community, lifelong learning, democracy, and faith establishes an important roadmap and legacy for others to follow and build upon in the years ahead. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City of Lakewood, Ohio, that this council and mayor hereby recognize and celebrate the life, legacy, and contributions of Mary Warren on the occasion of her 95th birthday. That this council and mayor wish Ms. Warren more happy memories shared among friends and family in the golden years of her life, specifically alongside her children, her 3 grandchildren, and her 4 great-grandchildren whom she adores.
Thank you. I'll just say briefly that in this month of women's history, I can think of no greater Lakewood resident to honor than Mary Warren. I'll open it up to council members. Councilwoman Strebig.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to celebrate Mary Warren's 95th birthday today. A pillar of our community and model citizen, I met Mary Warren in 2017 at the Lakewood League of Women Voters meeting. It wasn't long before Kate and I recognized her wisdom, leadership, and passion for voter registration. She was the chairperson of the voter registration committee, and I began to help her with organizing and conducting events at performances, fairs, schools, and colleges. When we weren't talking with regular or potential voters, she would tell me about her family and experiences. She was part of a group of parents that brought the hot lunch program to Lakewood High School. The mothers didn't want their children to have to walk home for lunch, and possibly not return to school. We talked about her social work, how unfairly people can be treated, and her efforts to get them to vote for better representation and policies. She once told me with a smile and a little giggle that she was in the congressional record for testifying before Congress on the need for affordable senior housing. She was chairing a national study by the League of Women Voters of the USA and was asked to testify. But it was at Lakewood High School voter registration events that I really saw her determination and drive. We set up a table in the cafeteria, and she was going to show me the ropes. We split the upper section of the cafeteria where the upperclassmen sit and set out. I walked from table to table asking who was interested in registering to vote. I received a lot of blank stares and very few replies until one student said that they would register. When I returned to our table, excited to show Mary what I had done, she already had 7 registrations and was planning for the next group of students to show up. I knew at that moment that I was in the presence of a master, and I had a lot more to learn. The next group of students arrived, and I followed Mary. She asked the students who would be 18 by the next general election. When those identified hesitated, she politely explained that we needed to hear their opinions, values, and preferences. They agreed, and they registered to vote. I learned a lot from Mary in the time that I've known her, and the most important lesson so far is nothing changes without effort and participation. Happy 95th birthday, Mary Warren, and thank you for your service to our community.
Councilman Marks?
Well, I first met Mary Warren in, I believe it was October of 2013. It was the first time I attended a League of Women Voters luncheon. And I met some women that were really women to be reckoned with. Pam Smith, Mary Osborne, and Mary Warren, who had been longtime members of the League of Women Voters. And when I saw that their commitment and their determination to be politically involved, I was just amazed, because I'd never seen that before in my life. And Mary always stood out as a woman with purpose, somebody really to be reckoned with. I've always admired her, and I think that she has done a remarkable job speaking for democracy in our country. And I pray for her daily, and I wish her a wonderful 95th birthday, and I'm so glad that her family's here to celebrate. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other council members? Councilman Bullock.
Thanks, Madam President. I'll just briefly add, thanks to Mary's leadership and a number of other League of Women Voters leaders present here today, the Lakewood chapter has been a steady, consistent, and strong chapter, and I think it's really led to a flowering in recent years, thanks to some of my colleagues up here, for sure, that's really been dynamic. So that wouldn't be possible without Mary being the anchor and the co-leader with a lot of everyone here. So kudos to Mary's civic service. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, council members. All right, we do have one person signed in to speak, which is former Councilwoman Pam Smith. You can push the button so it turns green. There we go. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Keppel. I'm very glad to be here. My name is Pam Smith, and I was a council person here in Lakewood a long time ago now. I live at 1528 Elmwood Avenue, as I always have. I joined the League of Women Voters a very long time ago and met Mary and worked with her throughout the year. This wonderfully worded resolution lays out so well what Mary has done within our community. Thank you very much for writing it, Councilman Strieberg. I would like to tell you a little story about how Mary has left her mark on everyone in Lakewood. and then that you just may not know about or may have forgotten about. In 1916, we were at a meeting, program planning for the League, and Mary said, well, you know what, I think we ought to plan some kind of a program to celebrate 100 years of women voting in the city of Lakewood. To which we looked, well, when was that? She said, 1917. But the 19th Amendment wasn't passed until 1920. And she said, right. But Lakewood passed a law allowing women to vote in 1917. It is a fabulous story, and it is very unique in Ohio. We are the only city whose council members, which after all in 1917 were all men, whose council members sponsored and passed the legislation allowing women to vote on state and municipal issues. Once Mary said this to us, and we were all a little surprised that we didn't know about it, we quickly determined we should have a party to celebrate this. Councilman Marks was also involved in it, as well as Councilman Streberg. It was down at the Women's Pavilion. There was a play. Somebody wrote a play. Mary took the part of Bernice Pike, who was our premier suffragette in the fight for women's rights. It was a great party, and they filled the Women's Pavilion, but that's only part of Lakewood. So out of that came the idea that there should be a historical marker in Lakewood. And two people raised their hands to work on the marker. One was myself, and the other was Kathy Kosorek, who's here tonight. We got the application. If you've ever seen the application for an Ohio historical marker, it's pretty daunting. Pages of information, and you can't have one sentence in it that's not supported by original research. Fortunately, down at Lakewood Library, they had the original, what's that machine that goes around and around? Yes. They had the Lakewood Sun Post from 1917, and we were able to document everything that was in order to submit that application. I would write a draft, send it to Kathy. She would correct my typos, I'd change sentences around, all in the very best possible way. And we finally narrowed it down and sent it in. And we checked a box that said, if possible, would you like to have a grant to pay for this historical marker? And of course we would. So we checked that box. And it was a couple months later, we got approval for the marker and approval for full funding. Because what we are celebrating here is really a unique event. You pass a lot of historical markers along the road celebrating somebody who was in President Lincoln's cabinet, and I'm sure that person was wonderful, but it wasn't the whole group event that we can celebrate on our marker. Our marker is in Lakewood Park. It's had its ups and downs. I think something happened to it a few months ago, but I went by it yesterday, and it's in great shape. If you haven't seen it, it is next to the Women's Pavilion. And I'm going to just quickly read it to you, because it was Mary Warren that gave us the impetus to go forward, apply for this marker, and see that it's there in Lakewood Park for all to see. Women's suffrage, the right of women to vote, was part of the women's rights movement in the United States from the mid-1880s 1800s through the early 1900s. In 1912 and 1914, women's suffrage was on the state ballot. But both times the issue failed statewide. But in Lakewood, it passed each time. Led by Bernice Pike, Lakewood's women, Lakewood women participated in the suffrage party of Greater Cleveland and gained respect and support for their cause. Lakewood City Council put the suffrage issue on the local ballot in 1917. The male voters of Lakewood passed it, allowing women to vote for municipal elections. In 1919, Ohio did ratify the 19th Amendment, which was added to the U.S. Constitution in 1920 and granted women the right to vote in all elections. The Lakewood League of Women Voters was chartered in 1922 and remains active a century later. I thought it was important to share this bit of history with you, and thank you very much for this resolution. I'm sure we all appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. All right. Oh, yep. Come on up.
This is Rosemary Martin. This is Mary Warren's great-granddaughter. And she just wanted to say hello to everybody.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us, Rosemary. All right. Do we have anyone else who wanted to speak on the resolution for Mary Warren? All right. Any other comments? All right. Then we have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution. Presuming it passes, we'll invite anyone who would like to join us down front. All right. On the motion to adopt the resolution, all those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes. Join us, anyone who'd like to join us down front for the ceremonial resolution.
We'll do
hair tie.
And reading and disposal of the minutes of the regular meeting of council held February 18, 2025.
Move to approve without the necessity of reading.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Item 1, report from Public Works and Sustainability Committee meeting held today, March 3rd, 2025.
Councilmember Evans.
Thank you, President Keppel. Today, the Public Works and Sustainability Committee met immediately before this meeting to talk about NOPEC funding grants that the city receives each year. It was a chance for Director Byington and the administration to talk through how projects are selected for those monies and take a look at what we've done the past couple of years and talk about planning for the future in 2026 and beyond. So we hope to keep that conversation going. Council will be considering it, and we'll obviously be talking with the administration as well as we move through that process. I'll make a motion to receive and file this oral report.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Item 2, Ordinance 11, 2025, an ordinance to take effect immediately to approve the editing and inclusion of certain ordinances as parts of the various component codes of the codified ordinances and to provide for the publication of such new matter.
I'm going to actually move to suspend the rules to allow us to go ahead and pass this. It just works out better that way with our publisher and our online publishing system, just in terms of deadline dates. So I'm going to go ahead and make that motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes. Then I will move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Just from any members of the public, this is just our sort of quarterly ordinance to update our codified ordinances. They've already been passed, but this is just publishing them. So, all right. So on the motion to adopt, any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Item 4, communication from President Keppel regarding appointments to the Citizens Advisory Committee.
Dear colleagues, as you know, the Citizens Advisory Committee performs the important work of evaluating federal funds and matching them with community needs. This letter serves to make official the following appointments to the 2025 CAC. Based on the professional backgrounds, commitment to Lakewood, and willingness to lead, I am confident that the listed individuals are exceptionally well suited to serve in this role. I would like to thank my colleagues for formalizing these appointments in a timely manner. I'll move to receive and file that communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion. This is, I'll just, again, since we do have members of the public here today, just a little clarification. The Citizens Advisory Committee helps determine how we spend federal funding in the terms of community development block grants. So these are citizens who tell council how they think that money should be spent. All right, so on the motion to receive and file the communication, all those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 5, communication from President Keppel regarding rescheduling March 17th general meeting.
Dear colleagues, as you know, our regular meetings of council are typically held on the first and third Mondays of each month, unless that Monday falls on a holiday, in which case the meeting is held on the following day. This year, the third Monday falls on March 17th, which is also St. Patrick's Day, a culturally significant holiday to many families in our community and city staff, and a busy time for many local businesses, and I'm sure our public safety forces as well. Therefore, holding this meeting on the following day, Tuesday, March 18th, will allow our neighbors to both celebrate this holiday and participate in their local government. And thank you all for letting me know quickly that if you had any conflicts with this date, it looks like we should be good to have quorum. So I'll move to receive and file that communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 6, communication from Vice President Baker, President Keppel, and Mayor George opposing Senate Bill 56 as introduced to eliminate the host community cannabis fund.
I'm going to ask Vice President Baker to take this.
Thank you, President Keppel. And word of warning, this is quickly changing, although this is the news as of the DACA deadline last week. I think it's still the case. Dear colleagues, on November 7th, 2023, Lakewood voters approved State Issue 2, Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol initiative with 81.2% voting in favor of this initiated statute. State Issue 2 passed by 57% statewide, showing the tremendous support from Lakewood. And State Issue 2 was an initiated statute, i.e. not a constitutional amendment, that sought to tax adult use cannabis at 10%, which is levied on the sale of cannabis by dispensaries to consumers. Ohio Revised Code 378023 currently states that 36% of the adult use cannabis tax shall be distributed to host community cannabis fund to directly benefit municipalities like Lakewood with adult use dispensaries. In January 2025, the Ohio Senate introduced Senate Bill 56 that contained a provision that sought to repeal the host community cannabis fund and direct all revenue from adult use cannabis tax into the state's general revenue fund, effectively eliminating the local control of those funds. While the version of Senate Bill 56 that passed the Ohio Senate on February 26, 2025, smartly does not eliminate the host community cannabis fund, the possibility that it may be repealed is still a grave concern to Lakewood and its residents. In 2024, Lakewood City Council worked with the administration to revise the Lakewood Codified Ordinance to welcome adult use dispensaries into Lakewood with the understanding that the host community cannabis fund would help address local impacts with adult use dispensaries and lessen the tax burden on local businesses and residents. Now the host community cannabis fund is at risk of being swallowed by the state general revenue fund. Lakewood City Council and administration seek to speak out against this about-face and betrayal of the voters that overwhelmingly passed State Issue 2 in 2023. Please join us in supporting this accompanying resolution against potential elimination of the host community cannabis fund. And I'll say that, so the version of Senate Bill 56 that passed the Senate kept the host community cannabis fund. However, the indications from the lawmaker are that they'd like to see this addressed in the larger spending bill and the budget bill. So we're still on the lookout for this issue. And I will say when we updated our ordinances in 2024, we did include a provision that a local impact fee that is equal to this the percentage that Lakewood would get in the host community cannabis fund would be a local tax. And we are clear that, about the fact that Lakewood voters approved this overwhelmingly, but they approved it understanding that the revenue from it would stay in Lakewood. So I ask all of you to join us in passing this resolution.
Thank you. And thank you, Vice President Baker, for doing the majority of work on preparing that. First, I'll move to receive and file the communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. And I'll also add, in addition to the funding, so the governor's proposed budget does also propose to move the this funding into the state budget, and also to put that towards, I believe, jails and prisons, and remove the social equity fund, which was designed to help in one way is to expunge records of folks who've been arrested on charges that would no longer be illegal, given the legality of the adult use cannabis now. So people could still have the records expunged, but they'd have to pay for it under the governor's provision. So just another thing, and would also remove the host community cannabis fund. So that's something to look out for in the budget, as Vice President Baker mentioned. So keeping an eye on that for sure, because I think a lot of us who voted for and voted also to endorse Issue 2 did so with the idea that this fund would stay here in Lakewood and that Lakewood residents would benefit from having these businesses in Lakewood. All right, any further comments on the communication? Councilwoman Marks.
Thank you. I think we're fortunate to have Tristan Rader working for us down in Columbus. I already talked to him about this and encouraged him to fight for these funds coming back to Lakewood so we could benefit from it. So he is willing to do that, and I also talked to Senator Antonio about the same issue. So at least we have both of them on our side fighting the fight for us. Thank you.
Thank you. I know Senator Antonio and her other colleagues on her side, they all voted against this provision. So. Any other comments from colleagues? All right. On the motion to receive and file the communication, all those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 7, Resolution 2025-08, a resolution in opposition to Senate Bill 56 as introduced to eliminate the host community cannabis fund.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
Madam President,
Councilman Bullock.
thanks for the resolution. Thanks for Mayor for teaming up with council leadership to support this. Seems as if the discussion we had, what was it, a year or more ago, it was prophetic. I know we talked about this and the decision about whether to have or not have a local tax wrapped around this very issue of the unpredictability of state intent. And there's a habit that the state government has often gotten into of kind of meddling with local government. And so this could be another example. I guess my question, so I'm happy to support the resolution. My question is, just can you repeat the history of the proposal to date and where things stand? So you're saying they passed something, but they removed the local impact in what they passed, and they said, or they reserve the right to keep trying to repeal the local government tax receipts?
Yeah, and the law director may have some information as well. I know that they're tracking the legislation, but I tried to keep out of this particular resolution the other things that were bad about 7 Bill 56 that President Keppel indicated, removing the social equity fund, other things. I tried to keep it to stuff that really affected Lakewood's bottom line, our budget. But as introduced, it eliminated the host cannabis community fund. As passed by the Senate, it did other bad things, but kept the host community cannabis fund. And the intent of the Senate was that this should be handled in a larger budget discussion and not in this particular Senate bill. What the House does with it, we don't know, but it would, obviously, if they change that, it would go to a conference committee because Schoolhouse Rock still does apply, at least in state government. But we don't know what's going to happen further. And that's the concern that I have, and the mayor and council president as well, because it really affects our budget.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that going into the House, that the new Speaker of the House has been an opponent of the of issue 2 generally. So one can anticipate how he might lead the House on this issue when it comes to the House. And then again, Governor DeWine did also recommend removing, in his budget, proposed budget, removing the local fund and putting that all in the state budget, which removes our local control of those funds as well. So something to keep an eye on as it moves through the next stages. Right. We have a motion and a second to adopt. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 8, communication from Director Gordon regarding Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District Cost Share Program Agreement for citywide catch basin cleaning.
Director Gordon.
Good evening. Dear President Keppel and members of City Council, attached is an agreement for your consideration for reimbursement to the City of Lakewood for labor costs required to perform citywide catch basin cleaning between the City of Lakewood and the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District. NEORSD would reimburse the City of Lakewood $23,576. In general, the City of Lakewood has a community cost share fund that generates roughly $6,000 per year from Lakewood's NEORSD customers. The community cost share funds can only be used on NEORSD approved stormwater benefit projects. As done in previous years, citywide catch basin cleaning is an eligible project, and the city is required to use our cost share funds every 5 years or we lose them. I request that City Council approve and pass the attached agreement so that reimbursement may proceed. Please let me know if you have any further questions.
Thank you. I'll move to receive and file the communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Vice President Baker?
Thank you, Director Gordon. As I understand it, most of Lakewood is not within Northeastern Ohio Regional Sewer District. This is just for Berea Road and some of the businesses on Berea Road that are in NEORSD. Is that correct?
Correct. Primary businesses on Berea Road.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Item 9, Resolution 2025-06, a resolution to take effect immediately authorizing the mayor, director of public works, or city engineer to enter into an agreement under the community cost share program with the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District for reimbursement to the city of Lakewood of the cost of labor for required citywide catch basin cleaning.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Item 10, communication from Assistant Planning Director Boss regarding acceptance of donation, Public Square Group, Lakewood Skate Park.
Director Byington?
Thank you, President. As part of the work to complete the second phase of Lakewood Skate Park, we have continued our efforts to concurrently install a much-needed shade structure for the park users. As the Phase 2 project is now nearing completion or closeout, we have identified the best structure for installation on the south end of the park, providing a significant amount of the shade cover where most users congregate and sit while not impacting the ability to skate and use the different elements in that area. The required funding for the acquisition and installation of this structure, which is $42,500, is aligned from two sources. The first, providing much of the cost, is an intended donation from the Public Square Group, PSG, of $32,000. PSG and its primary representative, Vince Franz, have been an invaluable resource of knowledge, guidance, and engagement on the skate park since its original planning and construction almost 20 years ago. This donation represents the collective fundraising efforts by Vince and his team with the local skateboarding community over the past years and is intended as their contribution towards the Phase 2 improvement of the skate park, specifically the provision of a shade structure to benefit all users. The remainder of the funding, which is $10,500 for the structure, will come from the existing contingency of the skate park Phase 2 construction project itself. Per Section 111.14, no match required, this letter serves to formally thank PSG and notify Council of our acceptance of their donation towards providing a key piece of the improvement that will benefit all skate park users going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll first move to receive and file that communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded, and I'll just also take a moment to thank Mr. Franz and all those who've been involved in his organization for their advocacy and continued work on this project. I remember them speaking to us when we got an update about this Phase 2 and the need for this shade structure, and as is his tendency, has stuck with it, and we appreciate that. All right, there are council members. Vice President Baker.
Yeah, I just echo Vince Franz. He's a force of nature, and you know, it's a great example of what really good community spaces can do to a family. I mean, Vince moved to Lakewood and kind of intended to move out, I think, but then really got into the community, really got in the skateboarding world, and then decided to stay and raise his family here. Now his kids graduated from high school and are at the high school, so it's just really thankful for Vince's leadership here, and what a cool thing to be done, and excited to see the ribbon cutting.
Any other comments? Councilman Bullock.
Madam President, thank you. Thanks for the letter. Thanks for the good work and the partnership. And Vince, wherever you are, and team, not only does he raise the funds, but he mentors, advocates, you know, really builds the connective community ties around this sport and this activity. So I think they've done a great job. Thanks to Public Works and the mayor for making this happen. I think, well, and planning, of course, too. The shade is the #1 thing that makes the pool at Lakewood Park usable, I think, followed closely by chairs to sit in. Now, I don't think they want chairs in the skate park, but shade is great. And I suspect there could be maybe a need for more shade, too. I just want to underscore that. I mean, it sounds either obvious or almost like trivial, but I cannot emphasize enough how hot the summer gets and how you get baked. And so if we make it a pleasant and inviting environment, people will respond and use it. So I'm glad to see that we're adding this and being thoughtful, and you know, maybe if there's more opportunities to keep improving over the next several years, that'd be great. I also look forward to seeing the new Phase 2. I think it'll be very exciting. So maybe I'll have some kids that will use it. We'll see. Knock on wood. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, and thank you to Planning Department also for bringing this forward. All right, on the motion to receive and file, all those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 11, February 2025 Finance Department Vendor Report submitted pursuant to Lakewood Codified Ordinance 11103.
Move to receive and file.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes. All right, we are now to public comment. Just a reminder, when I call your name, you can come up. If the button isn't already on, it should be green, so push it. If it isn't green, make it green. And then address your comments to the chair, that's me. And keep your remarks civil, and you'll have up to 5 minutes. All right, first up is Mr. Zakem. Welcome back. There you go.
Good evening. I would ask if you miss me, but I'm pretty sure the answer is no, so I'm not gonna ask. You know, it wasn't that long ago where I stood in front of Lakewood Council and pointed out that with the coming increase in real estate taxes, that I expected to raise my rents $50 a month per tenant just to cover the property tax increases. You know, last summer, I was looking at market rents for a 1-bedroom, 1-bath of about $900 a month. And surprise, surprise, when I looked last week, because I have some renewals coming up, I see market rents now ranging close to $1,000 for the same unit. So I wasn't that far off. And as I said, that $50 just covers taxes, does not cover the water rates that have gone up, insurance that have gone up, et cetera, et cetera. The feedback I think I received at the time, might have been Councilman Rader, was, you know, that's just business. It is what it is. Well, I spent the last couple of weeks screening tenants to fill a vacancy, and I never remember having to turn down so many applicants in one shot that did not meet our income qualifications. And I use the same standard income qualifications that most landlords used, including Casto, and some of the other developers that are going to be coming in. And, you know, perhaps council would like to join me and when I turn down people and explain to them that, you know, that's just business. Sorry. And my apartments rent for less than the so-called affordable housing that will be coming into Lakewood. So we'll see what happens when that occurs. You know, in the many months I've been coming here, I've gotten a few comments back, but I haven't received a single definitive comment yet that yes, we want to do something and look at maybe decreasing our taxes. I believe it was the city of Westerville that not that long ago that the city council pushed their own charter amendment to reduce property taxes via their charter because they didn't need as much that the levies were bringing in to cover police and fire salaries. So of the tax increases that I've paid, about half are due to the Lakewood charter because there's no 920 reduction on those taxes. And that money is just going to sit there. I doubt police and fire salaries have increased, you know, that much. I mean, what do they typically go up? 2, 3, 4%, and then you're only paying a percentage of that into the pensions. I'm not here to say that we shouldn't contribute. Obviously, we should, but that money is just sitting there. And, perhaps you can tell some of the people I rejected that a $200,000 lead light is more important than having a roof over your head, or maybe some of the people I reject can plug their TV into the charging stations that are coming. So I can tell you I run into a lot of upset people, but it doesn't seem that council is interested in helping things. But
thank you, Mr. Ziegum. All right, next up is Amy Herberger.
Good evening, members of the City Council. My name is Amy Herberger, and I am one of the many residents of Lakewood who strongly oppose the Bunce Road Rehab Project. We all want better roads, clean water, safe neighborhoods, but this project is not a true improvement. It is a rushed, flawed plan that does not reflect what the community actually wants or needs. Instead of helping, I believe it will create real traffic problems, destroy green space, waste taxpayers' money, and put emergency response times at risk. At the May 7, 2024 letter sent to residents outlined the infrastructure upgrades, water, sewer, and street paving, but conveniently left out the most controversial part in the required public engagement notification, the so-called multimodal pathway. Unfortunately, not many people showed up because the notification wasn't clear. Those who did attend felt caught off guard as the communication wasn't transparent by any means. The residents who attended had a selection of Plan 1 or 2. No other plan. It is happening, and you can comment. That is that. The city claims this plan will improve travel for all, but the facts prove otherwise. Fewer than 3% of students bike to school even on ideal days. The supposed support for this plan consists of many form letters, mostly from Bike Lakewood, Cleveland. Meanwhile, we have over 220 verified signatures from residents who oppose this project, along with 67 children, okay, who will not be using this path and are against it, okay? The people directly impacted do not want this project, yet their voices are being ignored. When I brought this concern to my own council person, I was simply told, I am for this, and what kind of representation is this? Or community engagement. The plan is flawed, and its presentation to the residents have been misleading. The city's images and letters downplay the true impact, making it seem like a minor upgrade when it will drastically alter our neighborhood. People don't know. For example, this city rendering shows a tree lawn that was never part of the plan and will never exist, okay? This plan includes bump outs, the so-called traffic calming measures, and I'm seriously concerned that this will create unnecessary congestion and confusion. These obstacles will cause delays and make daily travel more difficult for all residents. This project is simply in the wrong place. Implementing these unnecessary traffic measures will only create new problems rather than solving any existing ones. To push this project through, the city plans to cut down a significant amount of mature trees and remove large amounts of green space. This is completely backwards. While cities everywhere are working to improve air quality and expand green space, Lakewood is doing the opposite. Fewer trees mean more heat retention, more pollution, and lower quality of life. Why are we destroying our environment for a project that residents oppose? Even worse, the project impacts an emergency response route. Bunce Road is a critical corridor for fire and EMS vehicles. Reducing road space could lead to delays when seconds matter. This isn't just an inconvenience. This could cost lives. Here's the reality. This multimodal path will start failing in 3 years, long before any real benefits could even be seen. It's a poorly planned addition on a road that wasn't meant for it. And when residents start calling to complain about the cracks and the potholes and the failing infrastructure, most of you won't even be in the office anymore to take our calls. okay? This isn't just a waste of money, it's a temporary failing experiment at the expense of our community. If the city really wants to improve things, the plan should have at least included durable concrete paths that won't crumble in 3 years, more trees to replace what's removed to protect our air quality, keeping existing driveway curvatures for easy access. These are reasonable adjustments that would make this project more practical, but instead, we're being handed a rush plan that doesn't fit our needs. In Greek mythology, Cassandra was cursed with the ability to see the future. She warned of disasters before they happened, but no one believed her, and tonight we are your Cassandra, okay? We are telling you that this project will fail, that it will create more problems than it solves. This will waste taxpayers' money. It will fail, it will fall apart in just a few years, and when that does, it will be too late to undo the damage, okay? The signs are clear, the evidence is overwhelming. Don't make this mistake. We urge you to listen to the overwhelming opposition from actual residents and reconsider this plan before the irreversible damage is done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam President?
Mayor George.
Yeah, if I may, I just want to, there's more inaccuracies in that statement than I can count, but I do want to address one of which was the May 7th letter that was sent to residents. I have it pulled up on my screen now. Under project description, it states twice that we're looking to add bike lanes. Specifically, it states the City of Lakewood is working to make travel easier and safer on Bunce Road for vehicles, pedestrians, and bicyclists. So I just want to make sure that that's clear for the record.
All right, so we do need to maintain decorum. All right, Matt Herberger, you're next up.
I'm just wondering if that's appropriate.
Sir, I can respond anytime I would like, but thank you.
I'm just wondering if it's normal. That's all. My apologies. Guess it's getting heated in here. My name is Matt Herberger. I live on 1448 Bunce Road. And you're probably asking yourselves, why am I here, right? Doesn't he know? It's over. It's a foregone conclusion. The mayor's spoken, the council's spoken, the planning director, all in lockstep, one voice, same comments. And I paraphrase, it's a done deal. Get over it. I'm not even sure that that's true, okay? I'm worried about, since January 20th, all things related to government funding have been thrown in disarray, okay? And if we don't understand that, as a city, we're going to be in a lot of trouble, okay? Unless that money that you've got from NWACA and the state sits in a bank account that's controlled by Lakewood, I think it's foolish, and I think it's negligent to think that that money is going to be here in 1 year or 2 years. That's the truth. Because we can all see what's going on. I hope we all see what's going on. And as far as funding is concerned, we ought to be concerned about our funding because there are no provisions for the further maintenance of this infrastructure. The city, when it cannot even clear every road of snow during a snow emergency, who's going to be maintaining a bike path, a 1.5 mile bike path? No one. That's the facts. Sorry. It's the reality. And then we had a chance for our input. I can tell you that letter from May 7th, I'll quote the same thing. After the improvements would address the deteriorated pavement, curbs, sidewalks, long pedestrian crossing distance, clean water Lakewood, and consent decree, sewer improvement requirements, aging water main and structure, surface drainage, street lighting, bicycle lanes, aging signage, and other appurtenances. Okay, buried in that is a reference to a bicycle lane. A bicycle lane. That is different than a multimodal path. And I can assure you, because as a concerned citizen, as I am, I went to that meeting. And I can assure you, I was caught off guard by it, and I read the letter. And I can assure you my neighbors were caught off guard because a bicycle lane is not a multimodal path. It is not. And it is not, we are tearing up 115 trees and taking the sidewalk and the grass and replacing it with it. It's not. It simply is not. And don't gaslight, okay? It's insulting. I'm part of this process. I am an involved citizen. I've done everything. I've listened. I've gone to all your plans. A month later, the Planning Commission voted on it. And we were never given some sort of voting or a choice. We were told there's two plans, Bicycle Plan 1 and Bicycle Plan 2. And it was open for public comment for what, 30 days? The Planning Commission voted on it 30 days later. And then I want to address one other thing. There's always this comment, overwhelming response to this project, and overwhelming positive. I've read those responses. I hope you all have too. Because first of all, most of the overwhelming positive ones is a form letter. It's a form letter that a special interest group obviously got their members assigned. Most government entities wouldn't even take that seriously as a proof of citizens' input. You may take a letter and says this organization and all their members support it, but to tell me you got 700 responses and most of them are form letters and some of them don't even have to do with this project. So I read them. I wasted my time. Instead of, I'm doing your job. I'm reading them. So stop saying there's this overwhelming support. There isn't. And one last thing. Look at the multimodal path that exists right now near this city. It's in the metro parks. It runs right through a beautiful road, right next to the river. Where do the bicyclists ride? They ride on the road. They ride on the road, not on the path.
Thank you, Mr. Berger. All right, next up is Nathan Lizanich.
Hello. Nathan Lizanich, 1617 Robinwood. Good evening, council members and Mayor George, as elected officials. Our country is in a constitutional crisis, the likes of which no one alive today has seen before. Donald Trump is consolidating power at breakneck speed and is ruling by decree. He's using executive orders and putting people in key positions to enforce them. He has started to dismantle the institutions that protect our civil rights and liberties, and we are only 43 days in. The directives from on high are going to make their way down to the local levels of government, and our little blue dot in our Red Sea state will not be spared. Members of council, all elected officials, I ask you to ask yourselves today, am I ready? I ask you to ask yourselves, am I prepared to stand up to tyranny and uphold the Constitution? And I ask you to ask yourselves, am I going to be able to do what it takes to protect the rights of the people that I have been elected to represent? If you don't see it now, you will. If it hasn't affected you yet, it will. And every single person in this room, if it hasn't affected you, you know someone it has affected. There are people sitting up there right now that I know outside of this room. They know my family, and they know ways that it affects me personally. Now is the time that you need to ask yourselves seriously, am I prepared and ready for what is to come? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Shannon Mortland.
Good evening, everybody. Shannon Mortland, 2125 Bunce. You guys know how my husband and I feel about the Bunce Road Rehab project and the multi-use path on Bunce, right? So, as we've noted before, we have no issues with the rest of the project. Replacing sewer lines, rebuilding the road, enhancing crosswalks, etc. All that's fantastic and well done. But you do know how we feel about the multi-use path, and I'm here to reiterate that again. So, I have a 30-year career in communications. Much of that has focused on managing reputations. For 10 years, I taught crisis communications at Baldwin Wallace. As many residents on Bunce have told you already, the multi-use path creates a dangerous situation for people trying to back out of their driveways or enjoy the path at a leisurely pace while dodging fast-moving bicycles. The multi-use path will result in a crisis situation. And in a crisis situation, let me just tell you, all anybody ever really wants to know is what's in it for me. So, since many do not seem to be concerned about what's in it for the residents of Bunce Road, consider what's in it for all of yourselves, as well as for the city of Lakewood. As the plan stands, what's in it for you is a dangerous situation. People will be hurt on your watch due to a multi-use path that was created and implemented under your names. As a result, what's in it for you are hundreds of disenchanted voters on Bunce who are aware that you are siding with special interest groups over us. I still haven't found a Bunce Road resident or beyond who believes the multi-use path is a good idea. Among the comments I've received, number 1, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. Number 2, have the elected officials even been on Bunce? And that makes no sense at all. Those are the kind comments I've heard so far. However, what could be in it for you is a reputation of being known as an elected official who listened. You could be able to say, we made a bad decision. The residents called us out on it and demanded change, and I listened. I made it right. It's a pretty nice talking point, whether you want to keep the same job you have or vie for another one, public or private. Nikki Antonio's term limits are coming up next year. I'm sure somebody's going to want that job. So the choice is yours. Decide what you want to do with your reputation and your legacy. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, Dave Mortland.
Hi, Dave Mortland, 2125 Bunce Road. Yeah, I can go on and on and on about everything too, but I wish the people involved in this would come spend some time at Bunce Road. I chose Bunce Road 25 years ago, this June, because I like the life. Our favorite activity in the summertime, we sit on the front porch, grab a nice glass of wine, and just watch the neighborhood go by. If you come and do that for any period of time, you're going to see accidents. You're going to see people dodging cars. I like to think I'm pretty responsible. Got a nice driving record, knock on wood. Not everybody coming down the road does. I wish the bicyclists all the luck. I wish them well, but I think they're putting themselves and others in danger. And I know this isn't before you, but we're all going to speak our minds and we're going to be back, okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you. We do have one e-comment from Mr. Robert Organ. I'm guessing about bikes. I'm reading through. Was regarding improving bike safety in general, active transportation safety. Okay. Yeah, come on up, Mr. Zickham.
So, in a past life, about 50 pounds ago, I raced bicycles and was a pretty consistent rider. I rode at Penn State. I've ridden across the country. When I competed, I put in about 10,000 miles a year. So I'm definitely qualified to make the comment I'm going to. And the gentleman here and the lady that just spoke are absolutely correct. It is very dangerous when you put bicycles with pedestrians, dogs, scooters, etc., that are going at different paces, aren't necessarily following the rules of the road. Like the gentleman mentioned, when I ride in the metro parks, I never use the path. I was always on the road. Why? Cars are predictable. I mean, yeah, there's always someone that does something stupid, but I'm much safer than dealing with cars than I ever would have been with someone who's walking, paying attention to their phone, walking their dog. It could be the best trained dog. You know, a lot of them just think it's a game, and will chase the bike rider, no matter how good the owner is with the dog. You know, most dogs can easily pull the leash out of their hands. I know my 15-pound dog, when she wants to go, she can pull a leash out of a hand, you know, let alone a 50, 60-pound dog. So, yeah, I would absolutely rather be on the road. At least the cars, you know, the drivers are supposedly licensed and have rules to follow. All bets are off when you're a pedestrian and you put a bike rider in their path. Not good at all.
Thank you. All right, so now we're at the end of our public comment period. I'll just say a couple things. One, truly do appreciate people taking time out of their busy schedules to come and speak. I know there's many other places that you could be, other ways you could spend your time. You know, that it does matter. We do hear you, we do appreciate it. And in just kind of tying these things together that we've been talking about tonight and hearing from you, I don't know, so this council recently, you know, this past summer we did our council community conversations in each of the wards. I know I talked with a lot of folks from Bunce then and other folks about general infrastructure in terms of pedestrian safety. We've heard a lot from members of the public. I think speeding has to be one of the main things that we hear about actually from our citizens of late, and safety. To that end, as we've had those community conversations, we also have been working on our active transportation plan, and the city spent a great deal of work and engagement with that, as well as through our processes of going through our citizen boards and commissions. In addition to the active transportation plan, where we're trying to help folks be able to walk and bike, use assistive devices, we also have an ADA transition plan for accessibility issues as well on those same thoroughfares. We also have a federal IWIP, Integrated Wet Weather Improvement Project plan that we are federally obligated for the time being, to Mr. Lizanich's point, as long as there is an EPA, we are federally obligated to continue our work on sewer infrastructure and reduce our pollution in the lake, which includes some of the sewer work, as such we're seeing on Bunce Road. In addition to that, we also are often hearing about affordable housing, and we share that concern, Mr. Zakem. I know it gets frustrating, but we really do share that concern. In fact, even at I believe it was our last meeting where we passed, we all joined in a letter in support of another affordable housing project. It's a constant battle to keep up with the lack of wage increases, nationwide, a lack of a minimum wage, although we have set that for our city employees because that's under our control, but of a livable wage, as well as the increasing cost of housing. And while we all enjoy those of us who are homeowners like to see our home values go up, it also is a challenge for our community, which is almost about half renters here, and we are cognizant of that as well on this council. So we have a lot of things that we're trying to balance, as well as it is absolutely a concern about what is happening at the national level in terms of both funding, as well as values and the safety of all of our community members. So we are constantly thinking about all of these different elements, so I want to make sure that folks who come here understand that we do hear you and we do care, and we are all taking these things very seriously under consideration. All right, members of council, anyone, announcements, other comments? Councilman Marks.
I just have one thing to say, and I want to go on the record to say I stand with Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Marks. Other council colleagues. Councilman Bullock.
Madam President, thank you. Thanks for the thoughtful response to some of the resident input tonight. I want to respond to some of the Bunce Road neighbors who've come multiple times tonight. I guess I'd like to say, so I at least one other council member I know have had a chance to meet with neighbors. What I'd like to do is let's hang in there with one another and see if we can keep identifying the elements of the project design that the neighbors are giving us feedback on, and that may well be within the zone of what can be refined, improved, and improved. I think I've heard from the neighbors. Some of the points are the project design itself, and there may be a fundamental disagreement between some in the city and some of the neighbors, but other things are not. It's elements such as maintenance, quality of materials, the enforcement and success or the opposite thereof of regular traffic on the road right now as it exists before the project. There's a high volume and a number of speed, and I heard from one of the neighbors that at Athens and Bunce, a recent trend has been to go through the red light, even when it's clearly red, and just lay on your horn because people don't want to have to bother to wait at a red light. Obviously, nobody condones that. I do know, and I also want to acknowledge the chief gave us a great report about increased attention to traffic over the last 18, 24 months or so, and I think the city's increasingly focusing on that. So there's a number of things to work on here, but you know, I recognize, you know, if I am a citizen and I'm not being heard, I'm A, not going to go away, and B, I'm going to persist, and C, my emphasis may increase. So I think it's incumbent upon those of us on the city side to continue the dialogue so that the only option for the residents is this forum. This should be part but not the whole. So I'll commit to convening some city council, Councilman Tom. I can't speak for everybody else, but at least I think some of us are interested in trying to continue that so that we're respecting what we're hearing. I'm hopeful that there can be some responsive improvements to the current design compared to what's there today and what we've heard from the residents. I will also say, in support of the city perspective, a lot of us on council, including me, have been for years saying let's increase the walkability and bikeability of our town for all kinds of good reasons, health and otherwise. Mr. Zackham, I'm sure you'll get back on the bicycle once again, and that's great that you often did that. The recently approved active transportation plan called for exactly these kinds of improvements, like not small but major infrastructure projects. So the administration responded to that directive from the community and from council. Bunce Road came along. It was one of the first or the first large road. So according to the implementation of the active transportation plan, it's not unreasonable to say, all right, here we go. Why Bunce Road? Well, it could also be other roads. Bunce Road happened to be first in the chute. So we're having the Bunce Road conversation. I'm sure that there's always ways that we can collectively keep learning and improving. They tell the kids in school, growth mindset. Maybe today we're only so strong in certain areas, but tomorrow we can get better. So that applies to me too. We'll keep getting better. We'll hang in there with one another to try to listen and understand, and wherever possible, keep making adjustments so that we improve. So I wanted to say that tonight. I didn't say it the last couple of meetings. Maybe I should have, but that's a start. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, other council members, comments, Councilwoman Steiner.
So I just want to take a minute to say that I recognize and hear what Well, first of all, thank everybody for coming out and doing public comment. I think it's not easy to get in front of the microphone and go on public record with what you're saying. And I just want everyone to know that did speak that I do hear you. And I hear all of your concerns. But I do want to leave you with this little note to consider that we are coming into some unprecedented times. We are facing things that we've never had to face before. You know, all of us in here, I think, are not, you know, old enough to remember back when things were really, really bad. So all of this is going to be new for all of us, and we have to learn to listen to one another. We have to learn to listen. We have to learn to lean into one another, and we are going to need each other. All of us in this room, we can easily disagree on whatever it is, a variety of different things, but at the end of the day, we all are going to need each other, and that is just fact. With what we're going to be facing as a community, we are going to need each other. So I just want to keep that in mind, that no matter, you know, how you're feeling right now, no matter how your emotions may be, we need to focus on what really matters, and right now, that our community is what matters, and we all have to figure out a way to get in the boat together and to get through this. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, council members, other comments or announcements? Members of the administration, announcements or comments? All right, no further business coming before council. We are adjourned.